Hello and welcome. We have a very special guest joining us today. We do apologize for a little technical difficulty with the video camera, but nonetheless, the show must go on. So joining me today is Dianne Massey Dunbar, fantastic oil painter. We've been working with Dianne for several years now, and very much enjoying her work. Before she started showing with us, I started off as a fan. So Dianne, thank you for joining us today.
I couldn't be happier to be here, and thank you for inviting me, Clay. It's a pleasure.
Well,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
I'm joining you from Denver, Colorado, and we have a muggy, warm afternoon, but at least it's not 105 degrees.
Thank you, lucky stars, because here in Oklahoma, I would not say that the weather is amazing. I came down from the elevation in the mountains, the Cloudcroft, New Mexico, and it was just absolutely stunning and beautiful. And I came back down to good old Oklahoma with the heat and the mugginess, and here we are. So as we're having technical difficulty, I'm going to ask Dianne to start talking about what got her started in art. And we'll go ahead and pull up her slideshow, and that way it's not me sitting in front of the same background everyone's getting sick of. There'll be a picture of Dianne on there with a piece of her work, and we can talk about what got Dianne started in art. So Dianne, what initially drew you to becoming a painter and deciding to dedicate your life to being a fine art painter?
Well, for me, it was, as the story goes, some school teacher told my parents that I showed artistic ability. So my parents set out to find an instructor for me, and I started semi-private art lessons at a very early age. I was 7. His name was Harold Wolfenbarger Jr., and he seemed ancient at the time. Now age is relevant. I remember he had really bad breath, but it was such an amazing experience. And I studied with him well into high school and later on in my 20s. So I guess to answer your question is, I started early and I can't imagine doing anything else with my life. It's what I do. It's what I've been doing, and it's a blessing and a privilege. And it's also very hard work.
Well, it is. And, a lot of times the medium chooses the artist. Were you initially attracted to oil painting, or were there other mediums you wanted to test the waters with, so to speak, and play around with to see if that was your calling?
I played some with most other mediums, but I love oil. I love the smell. I mean, I would walk into art classes young, and I still love the smell of turpentine and paint and just the environment that says art. It's a little more forgiving in some respects, and I'm familiar with it. I've tried pencil, I've tried watercolors. I have a good time when I travel. I take a sketchbook and I make watercolor little sketches of where I'm going and what I'm doing. Less familiar with pastels, but oil is my passion.
Well, and you're certainly very, very good at it too. So we're all thankful that you were drawn to oil, because you've created some absolutely stunning pieces over the years.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And before I go anywhere else, Clay, I need to say this. I need to tell whoever may be listening to this that we do have a long-standing relationship. And folks, Clay's amazing. And I don't say that lightly. He's authentic. He truly cares about art. He truly cares about the artists, and he works very hard. So kudos to you, really. You've never let me down, or any other artist. And I'm privileged to know you and to be affiliated with you.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your kind words. And to the viewers from my end, it's cost me a lot of money to pay her to say these nice things about me. I'm only kidding. this is one of the reasons I was so excited to get a show going with you, Dianne, is just because, you know, your work is so unique. You're such a wonderful, nice person. And it's just a joy every time we get to chat on the phone or talk art and try to plan for a show. And one of my favorite things about Dianne, and then I'll turn this into a question to get her to talk about it, is when you meet someone like Dianne and you get to enjoy their work, you start to notice the beauty in everyday scenes and objects. What we're going to see today, or something that may annoy you when you're driving down the road, and she turned it into something beautiful. The burden, so to speak, of having to go down the produce aisle at the grocery store can seem like something where you're just, "Oh, get me out of here." But she found the beauty in it. And so that's why it's such a privilege to look at Dianne's work and to just take a moment and, you know, see what she sees as an artist in everyday life. And it's made my life better, because as I walk around, I try to see the different things in an everyday scene, being at a grocery store, being at wherever, you know, even looking at an empty Coke bottle or a piggy bank. These are the things that Dianne takes the time to slow down and share with all of us, to point out that there is beauty all around us if you'll stop and take a good look. Dianne, when did you start realizing you had a knack for just looking at everyday things that kids, adults may walk by and not appreciate? When did you start noticing that that was going to be a part of your work?
I think, Clay, it happened about 20 years ago. I grew up painting landscapes, and I always assumed I would be a landscape painter. It's what I knew. And landscapes are beautiful, and I applaud artists that paint landscapes. What I'd like the audience to understand is art is a form of communication. So where's your voice? What is it you want to say? And to me, everyday objects are, in a way, sacred. There's something we can all connect with. There's something we look at every day. For example, the ketchup bottle that I pulled out of the refrigerator every single day when my kids were under the age of 10, which probably speaks to my cooking more than anything. There's something wonderful about that ketchup bottle. There's something wonderful about the Legos. So my voice in art is in those things, everyday objects, everyday scenes, and almost invariably, they're drawn from my personal life experience. We can talk about the waiting for wine. Okay. Who doesn't love wine glasses? Who doesn't love wine? But this painting was about expectation. And I love glassware, as you know, because of reflections. I love bottles. I just love painting them because they offer infinite possibilities. But there's two glasses here. So there's an atmosphere of expectation, an atmosphere of excitement as you're waiting for the wine. What I really tried to convey, though, is I had fun with this painting, which I can't say about a lot of my work. I threw paint on it. I brushed paint over it. I found edges and lost edges. And I'm just really happy with this cute little piece, and happy that I was able to convey what I was set out to convey.
With this piece, one of the things that I really enjoy about it is you set down two glasses, regardless if it's a champagne flute, a Bordeaux glass, a super balloon, whatever the case may be. Most people see, okay, well, yeah, it's a clear glass, whatever. I hope the dishwasher dots aren't on there. You know, I hope someone's lipstick got off from the last time we used them. But this glass picks up a lot of light, and that's reflected in this piece. Would you share with the audience the oranges and purples and yellows and blues that were picked up in these from things around them, reflected light that you brought into this piece to give it the character that it has?
When I go to set up a still life, it's a matter of trial and error, and it may happen quickly or it may take a great deal of time. So in my studio, which is also where I live, I have a table, and that's generally where I set up my still lives, and I will put different lights on them. I will put lights at different angles on them. I will move them around. I will play with them literally until I find something that excites me, that strikes a chord in me. And so I can't tell you that I specifically set out to get all the color in here. I like to enhance color because I love color. I do see the color, but I amp it up a little bit because I think color is exciting and adds a touch of whimsy or excitement to a piece if it's in the right place. So that's how I set about my still lives.
Well, I certainly enjoy it. I know from looking at your work throughout the years that you'll look at it at first glance and pick some things up. And then as you continue to study the pieces, you've set up the composition and you lead the eye. And I love how you break the rules sometimes too. I'll see things in your pieces that I might have looked at it 10, 15 times, and I come back and I go, oh, yeah, look at that. Yeah. I mean, there's a simplistic detail to these that it looks like it's simple, but then the more you really look at it, you can tell how much time you really did spend on your work. And that's what's really nice.
Thank you, Clay, for that. And one thing I strive for is to put little dashes of color or little accent. I want people to continue to explore my paintings, not just today, not just tomorrow. So I'm thrilled to hear that you sometimes find something that you hadn't seen before in my work, because that is a goal of mine. I want people to continue to be interested in my paintings. Another thing I'd like the audience to take a look at is when you have two objects, you can't do them exactly the same. It's a little tricky. You'll notice that the wine glass on the left, the top rim is a little more broken up. They're the same but different, which adds a little more interest and a little more character to this simple painting.
Well, and that's one of my favorite parts too, is the way you played with the edges in these pieces, and it's a lot of fun. So Waiting for Wine is available through the Grapevine Gallery. So we will talk at the end of the show about how you can contact us for the opportunity to collect this piece. And then we will head over here to one of our next pieces. I know that you've done a couple of pieces in this series, so to speak. A lot of people get frustrated with, road construction because we're all trying to keep a schedule. And I know that there was an event that happened that brought out an emotion in you that you thought you needed to just show the beauty in what they were doing to help, make the roads better and help us get around more. So this piece is called Paving, and most people would go buy a piece of heavy machinery and go, eh. But with your ability and, your ability to bring the detail and the light out from this piece and the depth and composition, you can really see the beauty in this piece of machinery.
Thank you. The Road Worker series is dear to my heart. I painted these because these workers were in my neighborhood for over 2 months on a rather large project. So they were just within my block. And I would go out and watch them work. And Clay, it was like a ballet in the street. I've never really appreciated what goes on in that kind of a construction atmosphere, but the noise, the dirt, the heat. It was August and September, and these guys worked 4 days a week, so it was a long 4 days. They would start early in the day and they would work till twilight in the heat of the day, and in the afternoon they'd take a break and rest on the grass. And I was so impressed because they had so much trust in each other. They were out there within inches of heavy equipment. And you'll notice the expression on this man's face. This is hard work. And I decided to do a series of paintings honoring these men and all like them who improve our communities every day. And I'm so grateful.
Well, we're grateful you painted it too. And before I ask my next question, I just want to set the record straight. The model in this one, it's not me. She didn't have me pose for this. He and I have the same facial haircut. but but this is just another example of some things that people would not take an artist's eye to appreciate all the detail that's in there. But when you approach a piece like this, Dianne, I know that we've I put the artists on the spot a little bit about composition, and with the composition of this, about leading the viewer's eye, and like you said, for people to discover things about a piece. It's easy to first come out and see the model, see that he has a certain tool in his hand, look at the machine. But then it probably took me, a time or two of looking at this piece to see the bottle down there to the right on the machine, the empty, I think looks like a Sprite bottle or a Topo Chico. Lead us through a little bit about when you're drawn to a scene like this and you decide to compose a painting with shapes or shadows and lights and darks, forms, cools, all those basics and fundamentals of creating a painting. Would you walk us through just for a moment about what you do to try to set up a scene like this?
What I go out and with these men and similar paintings, I do a photo shoot. So I'll think to myself, I want to honor these workmen, and how do I go about it? So I would go out every day and I would do a photo shoot, and then I go through hundreds of images, in this case even more than that, and narrow it down to my favorites. And I loved this man's authentic expression. And there's a lot going on in this painting, by the way, but I had to try to simplify the values so it's not overwhelming. You've got a lot of equipment behind him. And then I begin the process of not just going through the images and looking at the images, but cropping the images and seeing what composition works best. And then when I find the top 5 that I might be interested in the size or the ratios I might be interested in, I then began the process of doing thumbnail sketches to see if the composition works. And it's a labor intensive process that I have. And after I go through all of that, then I have the chosen 2 or 3 images enlarged, so I really know what's going on, and I choose the final image, and that's how I arrive at this. But it's a long process for me.
I can only imagine, with setting up the larger piece, as you talked about, going from the thumbnail sketch to the larger piece, this one in particular being a 12 by 12. Do you start off with the basic shapes and values and then go to the detail? The suggestive detail is what I am so curious about with your work, that there's, like you said, there's so much going on with this piece, with the gears and the hoses and the, even where it's got the name of the piece, the machinery on there, and the dials. There's just so much detail on here, and that it would be very laborious for you to create one of these pieces. Will you let us know how you get to this level of detail?
Good question. So, Clay, to answer this, there's a long answer and a short answer. The short answer is I work my paintings 2 different ways. So, for instance, the Waiting for Wine and my still lives, I set up a regular still life and paint, as most artists do, from background to foreground, large shapes to small shapes. However, for these kinds of complex paintings, and you'll see more on down the road as we go through some of these paintings, I work a grid system. So once I've gone through the thumbnail and made sure I've got a composition and a painting that's going to work with me, I grid my photo reference and I grid my canvas, and I work from square to square. That way it's easier to transfer information in a 1-inch square or a 2-inch square than it is to transfer all of this information and get the drawing correct. I don't know if that's making any sense, but that's the best explanation I can give you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes complete sense to take a geometric approach to this so that everything lines up in a nice linear fashion and the painting comes together. I was just sitting here wondering, you look at certain portions of this piece, like the dumpster that's back behind him, that 1 inch square may not be such a frustrating day, but that the gears and that grid back behind it, that might have been what, a couple, 2, 3 days to get out of that 1 inch square. I'm just wondering if you ever think, like, am I ever getting out of this square today?
Well, there are days when it takes me a long time to get through square. So to elaborate on that, when I talk the grid system, I actually draw lines vertical and horizontal. So I have little squares instead of one big square. And artists have done this. It's not unique to me. Other artists have used this for their work when you're dealing with a lot of shapes. I start in the upper left-hand corner and work to the right across the row of squares, and then I move one down. And it gets a little tricky because you have to know how to mix the same color and the same edges and pull the thing together. So some squares are easier. You're right. The dumpster behind this gentleman was more straightforward. These gears and all the other that's going on, it's a little more complicated. All that little work with that, those little bitty squares on the upper right.
That filter vent section.
Yes. But I like little shapes. I'm drawn to complex shapes. So the way I generally work is on an intense painting with a whole bunch of thousands of myriad little complex shapes. And then I have to take a break and I do a still life, which I can play with. And then I go back to a lot of little complex shapes. So that's how I kind of do my painting.
Well, that is excellent insight, and we thank you for sharing that, because I've always looked at scenes like this going, oh my goodness, how did she keep that all together without just absolutely chunking it across the room?
Well, there have been days I've wanted to do that too, yes. But I'm pleased with this painting, and I think it speaks volumes about really appreciating, well, this was about appreciation, but also appreciating the overlooked things in life. Have we really stopped to look at what's going on outside the window or outside the car or on our street?
Well, we're all glad you stopped and took a moment to appreciate this scene, because it is a fabulous, fabulous painting. And then one of my longtime favorites, this piece that we have here, Shopping Cart. Just a wonderful, wonderful piece. As we mentioned in the beginning, a lot of people head down the road here and they're mad someone's shopping cart's in the way, or, oh, that ear of corn doesn't look as good as this one, or that asparagus isn't like I like it. But what a fun piece of art, just to look at this scene. So let us know, if you don't mind sharing kind of what the process was here about how to tackle a scene like this.
Okay, so this too is worked on the grid system. So I wanted everybody can relate to the grocery store. And the grocery store is a blessing, particularly in, after the year we've had. I've been ordering groceries, and now I can go to the grocery store and it's like, wow, look at all this. I can find my own broccoli and pick out my own potatoes, and how wonderful. So I'm really glad to take a look at this. And I love this shopping cart. I was really happy the way that turned out. So there again, I did a photo shoot at King Soopers and just took photos of this produce worker in action. And then again, went through a couple hundred photos and narrowed it down, and really liked the way the lines intersected towards the middle of this customer with his child. He's holding his baby there, and the produce worker that's stocking the shelves. The other thing that's about this is the grocery stores kind of have, kind of unusual lighting to them sometimes. So I tried to kind of capture that. I also had to distill down thousands of little shapes without it being absolutely unbearably busy to look at. And I think I was fairly successful at that, because you can clearly identify what's going on here. And All the little jugs of apple cider that's towards the front. Pretty much you can make out what all the vegetables are. So this was kind of fun to paint.
Oh, it's fun to look at. I just, a lot of artists have talked about the suggestive detail that there might be 100 stitches, in a certain piece of clothing, but you don't need to do 100 of them, just about 30 of them. So what's kind of the balance you tell yourself to work within this level of detail to yet bring this detail, but not overdo it to where it almost is muddled?
It's, for me, I put the detail in and then I can go back out and soften edges or blur edges or simplify areas when it becomes overwhelmingly busy. It's easier to have it there and then work backwards. So that's the way I approach paintings. I may go in and go, well, that's getting a little overwhelming, and simplify areas and accent other areas. So that's what I did with this painting.
Well,
the ceiling's pretty simple, the floor is pretty simple, and you need those simpler areas to support all these little tiny shapes that are everywhere else.
Have you been tempted to come back and put little COVID stickers on the floor about stay 6 feet apart or anything like that?
Nope.
No, I was just having some fun there. But a beautiful piece. I've always enjoyed this one a lot. And then this is a fun piece as well. We've had a lot of success helping people bring some of Dianne's Lego pieces into their collections. It's a fun way to play with Legos regardless of your age, and not feel like you're too old to be playing with them if you still enjoy Legos. But when Dianne and I first talked about this piece, it's such a nice balance of a detailed piece yet an abstract piece with the inside of a Lego Ferrari car. So Dianne, I'll let you take it away from here.
Thanks, Clay. I love this painting. I love the abstract quality of this painting, Clay, which is what I was aiming for when I painted it. Now, prior to painting this piece, okay, let's back up for a minute. I love Legos to begin with. Who doesn't love Legos? I mean, they're colorful, they're sturdy, you get to put them together, you get to take them apart. And I'm blessed with 2 sons. So when I do the Lego pieces, and I do them occasionally, I can smile through the painting because I can reminisce about sitting on the floor with my sons, and they're now adults, and playing with Legos. So they're happy for me. So I had done paintings of Legos from the outside, looking at a little fire engine and looking at a sports car. And for some reason, I decided with this piece, I was wondering, I wonder what would happen if I put the camera in the car. I had taken a bunch of pictures and tried to come up with an idea looking at it from the outside, and it just wasn't exciting to me, just painting this car. So I put the camera in the car and did a whole bunch of photographs, and this was the result. I thought this was just such a fun idea, and I think it's such a fun painting. You're right, abstract, and yet how cool is that? You're looking at what the inside of a little Lego Ferrari looks like.
I really enjoy it. As a matter of fact, I'm wondering if, kind of like a lot of your pieces with this extra detail, if I look hard enough, if I'm going to see the flux capacitor or not. Makes time travel possible, like in Back to the Future. But that was a DeLorean. But I'm a sucker for Legos, and I'm a sucker for sports cars. So I've always been a huge fan of this piece.
Thank you. I'm happy with
it. This is one of the Splash series pieces, and what we've done is we've really zoomed in on the brush strokes here and blown up the size of this. But as you stand back with these pieces, these are water droplets on a window, obviously. And Dianne's done several of these where she's been in traffic or, on a street scene, so to speak. So this is just a fun little piece. I can't imagine what all you had to go through to capture these water droplets and the different textures of how the window's wet, but you can see through it, but the vision's blurred. So I'll step out of the way and let you talk more about it, but I've always been fascinated with these pieces.
Thanks, Clay. Like the road workers, these paintings are also dear to my heart, and this is why. For many years, I struggled with a thunderstorm anxiety, and it was life-altering. I wanted to be in the basement, all safe when there was a thunderstorm overhead. One day, and I can't even tell you why, when no thunderstorm was expected, I was out running errands and a thunderstorm blew up overhead and I was in rush hour traffic in gridlock. I couldn't go anywhere, stuck, and I was really nervous. I can't tell you why, Clay, but I picked up the camera that was on the passenger seat of my car, and for some reason I started taking pictures of the rain hitting the windshield. Well, it was like a light bulb went off, because in about 5 minutes, I could care less about the storm overhead. And I was all engrossed into the raindrops were hitting the windshield and they were coming little dragons and little fish and the color. And it was amazing. It was like, wow. So I've done a lot of rain on windshield paintings. I still do some occasionally. And it's been a healing process. I actually am pleased to say that most thunderstorms don't bother me. I actually do some storm chasing. So I don't like tornadoes. I'll go on record for that. And I do not like hail, but an average thunderstorm no longer bothers me. I'll go out, I'll get my reference. And this is actually just one raindrop that I decided to blow up and make a painting of that as it was going down my windshield. I will say, if you decide ever, whoever's listening, to do a painting like this, be careful driving. And please don't tell my State Farm agent that I'm out there driving in the rain and taking pictures.
Well, your secret's safe with me. I'm glad you found a productive way to face your fear and turn it into something beautiful.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you've decided not to paint hail, because we've been dealing with our insurance agent about the huge hailstorm that hit Norman. So that's been less than fun on our end. But yeah, this piece of, one of the reasons I'm drawn to it too is one of the things my dad and I used to do when I was a kid is, if we were out doing a project and it would rain, we just sit back, relax, and kind of watch it rain. It really can be a very peaceful scene to be a part of.
Well, I'm beginning to appreciate that, but it's taken some time.
Well, we're glad you're starting to appreciate it. That brings us to back to waiting for wine with our bookend of our slideshow. But Dianne, thank you so much for taking time to work with us today. And sorry we're having some technical difficulty with the camera on your end, but it was nice to jump right in and start talking about art.
Always a privilege and a pleasure, Clay, and thank you for inviting me despite the circumstances.
No worries at all. Do you have any workshops coming up or any shows that you want to share with anyone, or is it just business as usual at the easel?
There are some shows coming up, and thank you for asking. I'm going to be in a show called The Helper Project, which is in Helper, Utah. I'm kind of excited about that. I guess it's quite the eclectic town. That's opens August 7th. I will be in a small works exhibition in Gallery 1261 mid-August. And I've been invited back into the Coors Western Art Exhibit, which historically opens in early January of 2022.
Well, it sounds like you've got a busy schedule coming up.
Well, that's always a happy thing.
It is. So it gives you a reason to do what you love and create more beautiful paintings.
I can't imagine doing anything else. So again, I'm blessed.
You certainly are. Well, anyone who wants to collect one or more of these pieces, you can do that by a couple different ways. You may look down simply at the bottom of the YouTube link with this show, where we're going to copy and paste our phone number and email and website information in. But for those of you who are more auditory, our website is grapevinegalleryokc.com. My email is clay.grapevine@gmail.com, or you can simply go on our website and you can just check out the homepage where this link and the others for this show are all on there. And you're welcome to watch these as much as you like, but don't wait too long, because if you wait too long for wine, someone's going to pick your glass up and enjoy it for you.
Well, thank you again.
Well, Dianne, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. And we thank all of you for joining us for the show today. And that brings us to the end of the program. So once again, grapevinegalleryokc.com. We're happy to help you add one or more of these pieces to your collection. And what a thrill it was to get to listen to Dianne talk about how she takes time to see the beauty in everyday objects and scenery and bring them to our attention through canvas. So for Clay Spear and Dianne Massey Dunbar, thank you very much, and thank you for joining us.